Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming here and for throwing this party for my father to celebrate as he steps down as Associate Provost for the Arts and goes back to teaching. I know he is very excited about this position change, and frankly, who does not enjoy the occasional change of position? And when he got this job, for a couple of years, I was saying to people, my father is the Associate Provost for the Arts at MIT, and then I would pause for a second, and I would say, which, by the way, is not pronounced the Arts at MIT, and then they would chuckle, because I had so accurately touched on what they'd been thinking at that moment. And then over the years, it got less and less of a laugh, which at first I attributed to the fine, fine job they must be doing here. And then my wife pointed out that people were no longer thinking the Arts at MIT, they were now thinking, why is this 40-year-old guy telling me what his dad does for a living? This job, of course, has not been my father's first dalliance at the intersection of art and science. Who could forget his magnificent Heisenberg Uncertainty opera? An epic musicale during which it is possible to accurately determine either the position or the momentum of the fat lady at any given time. And the plot cannot find its natural resolution if anyone is there to see it. I like doing jokes that I had to run past the physics department at UCLA before coming to perform. My understanding is that he first came to the attention of the search committee for this job with his Cambridge production of The Pirates of Penzance starring Stephen Hawking. Magnificent choreography, but truly no one can do a patter song the way that man can. It's good that you're not afraid to laugh at that joke. Professor Hawking heard me do that joke and he told me I'm a very funny man. Although, in fairness, it's completely impossible to tell when the man is being sarcastic. I've always been a little bit confused by MIT's readiness to hire my father. This is a man who, when I was in 3rd grade, told me with absolute certainty and a fair amount of insistence that thunder is created by clouds bumping together. He once warned me sternly in an Italian restaurant that if my pasta came into contact with my antipasta, there could be a catastrophic explosion. I don't want to say that my father is a narcissist, but throughout my childhood, whenever I became angry or depressed, he would go back into therapy to find out why. I like jokes that take a little longer for some people to get to others. From the time I was very young, my father sought to instill in me a real love of the theater. We lived in upstate New York. We did not have the Broadway stage to attend. He did what he could. He once took me to a dinner theater production of 12 Angry Men, done by Rich Little as a one-person show. I kid you not, he took me to Albany, a 2-hour drive from our house to the State Theater at Albany to see a production of A Diary of Anne Frank that was so bad, I swear to God, when the Nazis came in the first act, someone in the back row shouted, "They're in the attic! For the love of God, look behind the bookcase!" And now he's going to be going back to teaching theater, as I understand it, theater history, playwriting, acting. So I have prepared something tonight to pay tribute to those particular disciplines. I'm going to need some help from you. Don't worry, it's not turning into a freaking sing-along. I just need from you any 2 sentences in the English language. Please feel free to shout them out.
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
Dr. Livingston, I presume. That was well done. Thank you. Not actually a sentence. Oh, wait, no, it is, of course. Dr. Livingston, I presume. That's one. I need one more. Any one more?
That was a sentence.
That was a sentence. Perfect. Thank you. It's It's helpful and yet it's heckling. It's a passive-aggressive audience relationship. So my two sentences are Dr. Livingston, I presume, and that was a sentence. Because of the upbringing I got from my father, and because I studied theater in college and went to London, I happen to know every lost play and lost monologue known to man. And there happen to be 3 great playwrights who have written monologues that have since been lost. All of which began with the words, Dr. Livingston, I presume, and ended with the words, that was a sentence. To begin with, William Shakespeare, after having written Hamlet, was very pleased with himself and wrote another work that is not as well known. It does not show up in the collected works. From Fellatio and Herpes, second act, third scene, atop the battlement, a monologue that began with Dr. Livingston, I presume, and ending with the words, that was a sentence. Dr. Livingston, I presume, would be here now, my liege, were it not for thy foolhardy attempt to send him forth and, yea, dissuage those fine fellows who do, with their great health, approach the castle now, but thou, in thy great wisdom, thought it would perhaps do well to send him forth and have him, say, convince them with his sweet and honeyed tongue and well-informed words of some great ailment that should hold them back. Methinks, my lord, that thou art most foolhardy in this that thou hast done, and yet, far be it from me, thy great and loyal subject who doth love and serve thy needs, who would embrace thy nearest wish as doth the gull with widespread wings embrace the sky, to say that this was bad or foolish, or perhaps an ill-advised approach. Nay, sending him to speak to them may show some cleverness at that. For he did need to be in some way punished for what he's done within thy court, and methinks, in sending him out thus, that was a sentence. In 1989, my father took me in New York to see the press preview of Glengarry Glen Ross by David Mamet. There was a monologue in that production that was later cut that began with the words, Dr. Livingston, I presume, and ended with the words, that was a sentence. The lost monologue from Glengarry Glen Ross by David Mamet. Warning, some language may not be appropriate for the particularly tight ass. Dr. Livingston, I presume? What is that as a way to start a conversation with a person you've never met? You walk in, I'm talking to a guy, you say, hello, Rick, who's your friend? Introduce me. You do not come in, Williamson, you do not come in trying to be witty, trying to be clever. When I'm talking, will you listen to me when I'm talking to you? You do not say something you think is clever. If you had ever worked the job, if you had ever been on a sit in your life, if you were a man, Williamson, you would know how a pitch works. When I am on a sit, I do not want to hear how funny you are, how smart you are, because you are not. Williamson, you could not find your dick, 2 hands, and a personal assistant. You want to say something when I am on a sit, you stand just outside, you listen to me, you stand. Just outside the frame of the conversation, I gesture you in, you join us then. Mitch, Murray, they know how it's done. When I started here, they would come down all the time. They knew you do not walk in the middle. One time, Mitch, he wanted to interrupt. He had something to say. You know what he says? I'm talking to the guy. I'm making the sale. I've got the clothes coming. He comes up. He says, I got your contracts. You want to start a conversation? That's the way you do it. I got your contracts. Makes me look successful. Makes him look involved. It does not look stupid. I got your contracts. That was a sentence. Without saying fuck. Finally, because my job tonight is not done until my father has put scotch through his nose. In 1991, Dylan Brody wrote a play. Everybody who read it said it was brilliant. It won a prestigious playwriting award, and as a result, was granted a very strong 4-night run at the Old Mill Theater outside Logan, Ohio. It's not a play that he shows to people. It was originally called Sidney Greenfellow Observes the Slow Decline and Eventual Death of His Mother with Profound Ambivalence because he never liked her that much to begin with. After several tearful conversations with his agent, he cut the title down to Sidney Smiles on Tuesdays. From Sidney Smiles on Tuesdays, the monologue by my father that began with the words, Dr. Livingston, I presume, and ended with the words, that was a sentence. Dr. Livingston, I presume, was no less world-traveled than you are, Michael. You know everyone, you've been everywhere, you've seen everything. I know. I welcome you here. I'm happy to have you in my house. But Michael, I gotta tell you, the attitude is bothering me, the approach, not so good. I know. I understand what you're getting at. But I gotta tell you, if you're here to blackmail me, Michael, this is not the way to go about it. When I first saw you, I liked you. I loved you. You were a beautiful young man. I think young artists are at their most beautiful when they look forward and shamelessly reveal the world they imagine. And I think old artists are at their most beautiful when they look back and shamelessly reveal the world they've seen. I don't know, I'm an accountant. I do my best work, all the numbers add up to 0. But you had better be damn sure before you come here with threats that it's not my day to be a beautiful artist. You better be very, very certain that you know where my shame lies. You think you can shame me into opening your gallery? Oh. My daughter calls me from her SUV in California while she's driving to the gym to climb a fake rock wall in an air-conditioned room. And she thinks she's an environmentalist because she uses unbleached coffee filters. I don't call her on her bullshit, and that is my shame. My son comes to my house. He spends 3 hours telling me how well things are going while he works up the courage to borrow money. That is my shame. Whether I give it to him or not, I feel like I'm ruining his life. That is my shame. While I'm here talking to you, my wife is upstairs reading a Stephen King novel, certain that I'm only down here because I'm avoiding a conversation with her. And when I get up there, she's going to pretend she's asleep to avoid the same conversation with me. That is my shame. What I did or didn't do 20 years ago, that is not going to make me do what you want. I would come clean before I would give you what you want. And if I gave you what you want tonight, Michael, you would live the rest of your life knowing that everything you had built on falsehood and lies and deception. And you would carry that all of your days. And you know what? That is a sentence.